Testing 1 2. Yes. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Can you increase the volumes? Increase the mic level for me a bit. Yeah. Um, this is gonna be on, I think, control room audio. That's production. Okay. No, wireless mics. Okay, so wireless mic, handheld 1 2. This one is on 1 right now. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Check 1 2. Which one? The podium? No, we put it on 5. That's on 5.
afternoon. So it is my pleasure to be here today in facilitating this event, Reawakening Virtues and Restoring Balance in Law and Society with Armstrong Williams. Let me tell you this right now. You are in for a treat. I've had an opportunity to sit down and have a wonderful discussion with Mr. Williams, our president, our Dean John McDessie, our boss of Black Law Student Association, and some other students here at our university. And we had a wonderful discussion. It went so well that Mr. Williams was willing to come back and facilitate a further discussion with our entire student body. So we're really, really happy to have him here. And I also want to thank our president, President David Armstrong, for his work in helping to bring our Ben Crump Center for Social Justice here to this university. These are the types of initiatives that we want to continue to facilitate. I'd also like to thank our Black Law Student Association, who I worked very closely with on this event, as well as Shayna, Robin Hoffman, and her team. There's a really strong community that we have here to do wonderful programming for our students to make a difference in your lives, the difference in the way that you think about the law, how you perceive it. And I'll say this one thing. When I first met President Armstrong and I interviewed here, we had a discussion about something, and we disagreed, right? And I told him I disagreed. He disagreed with me. But at the end of the day, what we talked about was this magic word, and it's very critical in our society going forward, which is the concept of balance. And we had a wonderful discussion about facilitating both sides of the equation, having a discussion. I don't know that I convinced him about anything, and I don't know that he convinced me about anything, but there was a mutual level of respect and understanding for the various viewpoints, and that's what today is about. So I'm happy to have you here, and before we begin, as we always do here at St. Thomas University College of Law, we will begin our day with a prayer. So I would like to invite Father Capo up here to state the prayer.
And as we prepare to begin this reflection and conversation on reawakening virtues, we do so by recalling the virtue of reverence and fear of God. And we so begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, strengthen and direct, we pray, the will of all those who work in the legal profession, of all who seek to build your kingdom as a reflection of your law and justice. We pray that they may be bold to confront evil and injustice, to understand and be compassionate, to reject alike the half-truths which deceive, and the slanted word which corrupts. May the power and wisdom which come from you always be used with honesty and courage, with balance, with respect and integrity, reawakening the virtues that come as a gift from you, restoring balance in law and society, inspiring the values of your kingdom, where we may, unashamed, finally meet you face to face after serving the least of our brothers and sisters. We ask this in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So I'd now like to introduce you to the 10th president of our distinguished university. He has always been affectionately known as the turnaround guy. You know, but one of the things that I will say about President Armstrong, I might have to give him a new title as the construction guy. And the reason why is because when you come to this law school, you come to this university, have you guys noticed as new students all of the construction that's going on around the campus? Yes, right, new buildings. What does that mean? That means growth. That means opportunities for you as students. That means expanding the reputation of our institution so that we can continue to do the wonderful things that we do here. I was having a short conversation with a student, and the student said, Professor Clark, I had to park all the way over there. And I said, that's wonderful. She said, well, Professor Clark, I had to walk for like 15 minutes just to get to the building. I said, that's excellent. I said, that means growth. That means that this is the largest classes that we are having here. We are breaking records, and it's all attributable to the leadership of our president. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce President David A. Armstrong, JD.
Welcome, everyone. It's so awesome to see all the students that are out here today, so I really appreciate you on a Friday, which I know is kind of a lighter day where you can go do other things, and so it's awesome that you're here today. We have a very special day because we have a very special man who's going to speak to you. He visited campus several weeks ago and had a chance to sit down with some of you. Who were the students that were there that day? Anybody that was there? A couple of you? Okay. Thank you for being you, because that's why he wanted to come back, is because he was so impressed with our students. And so, yes, give them a round of applause. We also want to welcome Brandon Ponder, who is the right-hand man for Armstrong Williams, or as Armstrong calls him, the money man. And so I like Brandon because he's the money man. So how this center came to be. Dean Lawson had a great friendship with Benjamin Crump from the National Bar Association. Ben came here when he wrote his book, Open Season, and gave a great talk. Some of you may have attended that. And I had to miss it because I was traveling, but he left me a signed book. I collect signed books. And it was an excellent book. And Dean Lawson said, you know, President Armstrong, I think you and Ben will get along great. And I just thought, really? Here I am, a Catholic white guy from Cleveland, Catholic University, conservative president, and here he is, the civil rights icon, the legend of the left. And okay, if you think so, Dean Lawson, we'll give it a shot. And so I took him to the Super Bowl in Tampa, and we spent all day together. And number one, we definitely hit it off, but number two, I saw the impact that Ben has in this country. When we walked around that stadium all day, everyone was stopping us, literally, people falling into tears about the work that Ben Crump does for the community. And so it was very, very special. And so that led to the mutual respect and a decision to do something at our wonderful College of Law. And again, people ask, how can you come together, you two guys? And it's actually very simple. We both have a love of people, a passion for our faith, and a passion for the law. And we both believe that the words in the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, are what make this one of the greatest countries in the history of civilization, and also are the answers to whatever ails us. And lastly, we're definitely simpatico on this issue. Equality comes when people have access to wealth, people have access to business, people have access to capital. And that's one of the things that we want to do for all of you, for your future. And so when we announced the Center for Social Justice, the Benjamin L. Crump Center for Social Justice, you may not know this, Mr. Crump took a lot of heat, especially from the historically black colleges and some other people like, what are you doing at this Catholic university? And then I took a lot of heat as a Catholic university that what are you doing with Ben Crump, and he's against the police and this, that, and the other thing. And the great thing is we actually laughed about it, Ben and I. He made a commitment to this university because it was Catholic, because it was a faith-based institution, and because of our diversity. And he was willing to say that out there in public and take on the people that were criticizing it, and now that's all gone away because they see who you are and what we do. And so this center, yes, thank you. I was told to keep my water down below so I don't get in trouble. So this center has 4 pillars. Number one is we want to educate and develop the future social justice engineers for our country. Number 2, the Bald Eagle Project started by Dean Lawson. The most underrepresented area in law is African American males, and obviously Ben has a great passion for that as an African American male who's a lawyer. And so giving the support, scholarship, and any resources that are needed so that we can graduate more African American males into the profession. And I want to thank law graduate Robert Strickler, class of 2012, who came down here all the way from Tampa to be here today. And he understands the attitude of gratitude. They just made a $2,500 gift to Balsa, which is awesome. And I want to thank them for that. And I want to thank your co-sponsorship for this event today and bringing so many students here. Excellent job. Thank you so much. 3, and this was a key for me because St. Thomas University has a great criminal justice program. At one point in time, I was told of the 22 municipalities around here, each one was led by a chief of police that was a graduate of St. Thomas University. And so this Center for Social Justice has to be a bridge and a bridge builder between police and policing and civil rights. And I think that was demonstrated in our first ever event a couple weeks ago where NAACP local chapter came on our campus and we showed the movie Driving While Black with City of Miami Garden police officers who then had a discussion afterwards with our students. And it was an excellent night. And then the last pillar, again, very important to Ben and to me, is about socioeconomic. Okay, we can't talk about equality again until people have access and have the ability to hire people, start companies. My father came from nothing, started his own business. He is my American hero. I'm a Hamiltonian, I'm a capitalist. I believe that's where human flourishing takes place, is in that type of an economic system. So we have a political problem today, right? Everybody says this is the worst ever time in politics in America. Not true. Go back to 1800 where they were caning each other on the floor, on the House floor. Okay? So there's always a place where you can find it worse. In 1972, people overran the Pentagon, tried to get into the Pentagon because of the Vietnam War. And so it's not as bad as everybody says, but it's not good. If we go back to Madison, James Madison, Federalist 10, he talked about the evils of the two-party system, which is what we're in. I have a new theory that actually Madison was wrong until now. It's amazing, those founders and what they wrote in their thought process, because he didn't understand or obviously didn't see two things, two factors: social media and 24-hour news. You've heard me say before, 24-hour news, social media are trying to destroy this country intentionally for news ratings and clickbait. And we have to be the bridge builders. We have to understand that that's not how we have to live, because in the end, we're lacking balance. We're lacking balance when we only think about one way of thinking. You need to watch other news networks. You can't just watch CNN, or you just can't watch Fox. Every time I turn on the news, it's going to be a half hour, because I watch Fox for 10 minutes, I watch CNN for 10 minutes, I watch MSNBC for 10 minutes. And if I have another 10 minutes, I watch BBC. Don't go down the rabbit hole. YouTube, social media, Facebook, all those things intentionally drive you down the rabbit hole. So whatever you look up, they're driving you to more of that. That's not the way to be educated. To be educated is to look at both sides of every issue and multiple sides of every issue. And we don't have to agree. And I love Todd's story that he talked about, because that is totally true when we met. You don't have to agree, but you need to understand the other person. And most important, you need to respect their right to say it. That's what this country's about. Politics is a compromise. Politics is a compromise. Conservatives love Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan wouldn't have got anything done without Tip O'Neill, the staunch Democrat out of Boston. Okay, it's a compromise. It's working together. Diversity, of course, diversity is good in everything. It's good in opportunities. It's good in as far as ethnicity. It's good as far as all those things. But I would contend that diversity of thought is a bedrock of quality education and the bedrock of this country. The people that came here came so they could think and have freedom of conscience, not from the king. And so here at St. Thomas University and St. Thomas Law today, I think we're providing that balance through our speaker, Armstrong Williams. And I ask you to have an open mind and an open heart. And Ben's intro to, Ben Crump introduced Armstrong Williams to me and said, you guys are going to really like each other. I said, he goes, because of the name, obviously, but he didn't know that my hero is my dad, William Armstrong. And so I told him right away, I said, you got the best name in the world. And so we kind of hit it off after that moment. This man is an entrepreneur, a true American, a true capitalist, owns many hotels, many properties, many businesses. He owns one of the largest network syndicates in the country, and I just found this out today. He's in the Black Enterprise Top 100. Okay, so there's five, now think about this, 5 million black-owned businesses, and he's in the top 100, and he thinks he might be in the top 50 this year. So we'll see what happens. Yes. That's not all. He's a philanthropist. He's a journalist and a publisher. He's a writer of 3 best-selling books, and Reawakening Virtues is my favorite. And so hopefully he's going to talk a little bit about that today, the values that we need to awaken America. And I found this out today. He was also a writer, and this is for the older people in the crowd, for Norman Lear sitcoms. So you think of Jefferson's, Archie Bunker, you know, All in the Family, all those legendary sitcoms. He was a writer, and Norman Lear actually created a program, developed a program based on him. And so it was a character that, now that show eventually got canceled, or did it go forward? We're not going to say. He is a conservative political commentator, and how many times can you say that you met somebody who ran a presidential campaign? He was a leader and led Ben Carson's presidential campaign. And so, but here's the thing I love most about Armstrong. He is a man from humble beginnings. He grew up on a farm, a family farm in South Carolina, with very wonderful, faith-filled, but tough parents. And that family farm is still in their family today. He is a true Renaissance man, and we are honored to have Armstrong Williams at St. Thomas University College of Law here today. Please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you for being here. No, one of the things I enjoy most is the broadcast live. We own many network television stations across the country. We literally get to impact values and opinions. It's a very powerful position to be in. You really have real power. Because there's no such thing as freedom of speech in America unless you own the media. And we own the media. Yes. And I want to thank President Armstrong and Ben Crump for inviting me to be a part of this university. You know, I'll tell you a story, and I'm often removed by the moment I'm in. You know, I must admit, it shocks me how blessed I've been in life. It really does. It just blows me away. And it's almost scary. And every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is I'm on my knees thanking the Lord. Because I realize so many people start this journey, and we read these headlines in papers about tragedies and tragics and storms and people dying for no reason at all by drunk drivers, people dying of cancer, and then freak accidents. And I say to the Lord, just by your grace and mercy, I'm still here. I think the best gift for me is the fact that I actually get to wake up every morning. And as long as I get to wake up in the morning, I have a chance. And then I get to run around 4 a.m., 6 miles every morning. The fact that I can be in one with nature, and the wind blows, and the birds chirp. It's the best orchestra in the world. the orchestra of nature. And it speaks to you in a way that is just unbelievable. Sometimes when I'm searching for answers, nature and the wind just blowing, giving it to me. Because in the morning, I say this to you, in the morning is the best time. The mind is fresh. You're like a baby, like a newborn. You have all the energy, all the ideas. You have a clean slate. By midday, you're a little older. By the late afternoon, you're in the wind of your life. And then by nighttime, you're dead. And then the cycle starts again. And so, as people think about, and as sometimes I think about my success, the greatest success I ever had was the best department of health, education, and welfare growing up was my mother and my father. Because when you read the stories today about parenting and about the relationships that men have with their fathers and children have with their parents, I can't even relate to it. I never had conflict with my parents. I always felt that my parents were right, even when I felt they were wrong. But because of the sacrifices they made to make it possible for my 10 brothers and I to be who we are today, they can be wrong. They have that right. But I love them unconditionally. And no one could ever influence me more than my parents. That's why I have never in my life, because of my parents, it's a tribute to them. That's why I continue today. I've never smoked any kind of cigarette or ever been exposed to drugs ever in my life. I've never drank any alcohol, beer, or wine ever in my life. And I've never used one word of profanity. Those are my virtues. Those are my values that come from my parents. And whether they work for you, it's not about that. They worked for my parents, and if they were good enough for my parents, they were good enough for me. And those things guide my life. You know, I don't care about wealth and titles and where you live and how big your house is, or what you have in your bank account, or what you look like, or what your preferences, or what your color. I don't care about those things. What matters is your character. The choices that you make every day, the people you choose to study with, the people you choose to hang with, the people you choose to sleep with, the people you choose to be influenced by. Those choices will have more of an impact on who and what you become than anything in life. And I just thank my parents that though they were imperfect, they were perfect for me. And my golly, that was enough. And so no matter what my success is, they taught me about faith, morality, virtues, and also seeing the good in everybody. I see nobody in this place today that I make any judgment about. Doesn't matter your look, your hair, your appearance. The first thing I do in life is I extend my hand and I say, my name is Armstrong Williams. Let's get to know each other. We're so caught up in labels and titles and being a part of that group that we lose our own identity. We have to be conservatives, liberals, Democrats, and Republicans. We lose our own identity, our own values, our own truth, our own purpose, because we're defined by what others want us to become instead of defining by who and what we are. And because it goes on so long, we forget who and what we are. I'm a free man. Freedom is not for the faint of heart. It takes just as much to maintain it as it did to establish it. Freedom comes from God and not from man. Always remember where freedom comes, not from man. It's the choices that you make that is commanded in natural law by your Creator. There's something greater than all of us that's out there. In every step of my life, I'm reminded that virtues and values and how we treat and feel about one another is what matters in life. I could care less if you're liberal or whatever. I care in your character. If I can trust you, if you can be loyal, if you can be faithful, honest, work ethic, that's what matters, not your politics. It rarely defines you, and it's always evolving. Social media, likes, dislikes, people committing suicide because someone disliked them. How shallow. People are so empty. They're so lost. There's something that happens when a mother carries a child for 9 months in the womb, and they're connected to that mother's power source for all things food and nourishment. And at the time of birth, when that mother or that doctor cuts that umbilical cord and that child is disconnected from his mother, from his power source, they search for something to be connected to. Sometimes it's lust, drugs, relationships, power, and yet they're still empty and unfulfilled until we connect to something that is greater in life with a greater purpose. We'll always be wanderers, wondering who and what we are. And I'll tell you, life is not complicated. No. We've seen this scene so many times before. What happens when you do drugs? What happens when you lie? What happens when you steal? What happens when you cheat? There's nothing new under the sun, is that you keep repeating the same behavior that others repeated in the past, and you're hoping and praying for a different result. Morality, virtues matters. My blessings come from not my bank account, but my moral account, my virtuous account. How I treat people account. That's the only account that matters. It's that invisible sack that's on your back. And when you do good, there's no immediacy. There's no microwave mentality where there's immediate reward. When you have sex, you get that good feeling. Or when you lie, you rob someone of the truth. Or when you steal, you rob someone of their good. And there's an immediate reward. But in doing good, you sacrifice a lesser good for a greater good. And we don't want to do that now. In the classroom, you earn your grade by studying, by the midnight oil, by making the sacrifices, reading the book before you get into class, going into the study group, not by partying all night and expecting to show up to the class the next day and you're going to get an A and B. No, life doesn't work that way. And sometimes life will fool you. You'll get that A and B, but it's deceptive because in the long run, you fail. And more importantly, you fail yourselves. There are no shortcuts to life. There's nothing special about you being white, black, Latino, gay, transgender. What is special is your character and what goes on within you, what people cannot see. Because at night, when I go to bed, I have peace in the midst of my storm. And when I wake up in the morning, I have joy. I don't seek happiness. I don't. It's fleeting. I could be happy thinking I can harm somebody for a moment, steal from them in a moment. I mean, can it get happy? But it doesn't last. What I want is peace and stability in my life. We're so caught up in the short-term gains of life until we don't forget about the big picture. There is no shortcut to success. It's hard work. It's sacrifice. It's discipline. And it's respect. All these issues where they have us so divided, it's just not complicated. We must regain. They have to go to class. I understand that. We get that. And that's what they should do, because that's why they're here. We get that. That's not disrespect. That's understanding why you're here. So if you got to go to class, don't mind me. Go to class. I understand that. So I didn't come here today to talk about the typical issues that you hear about But values and virtue matters. Honoring your mother and father, even when you think they're wrong and they don't know what they're talking about. The Bible, God gave you parents because you'll be parents someday. And whatever you've sown with your parents, you'll reap the same rewards. Nothing escapes. There's nothing special about us except the choices that we make and how we live and how we treat our fellow man. I'll tell you a story, because I'm never long. Because what I have to say doesn't take a whole lot of time, because you know it. There's nothing rocket science about living and what it takes to be successful and what it takes to be good. And even at the end of the day, when I've done all I'm supposed to do and I don't get the reward I expect, or when I don't get the contract, I still am thankful, because my serving God is not on a bet or whether he delivers for me or he gives me what I want. Because you know what? I really believe that he's too wise to make a mistake and too just to do wrong. And if I don't get it, there's a reason. That's why patience is an honest man's revenge. Patience is an honest man's revenge. And patience is key. So, I'll tell you this story. Had an enormous impact on my life. When Nelson Mandela, and you know, I feel old. I feel like I've lived 150 years. I feel so old that I've been around for so long. It's no joke. I tell Brandon, who's my chief financial officer, I really feel ancient because I've been able to sit with history. And when Mr. Mandela was released from prison, I got the first interview with him. And I was at his home with a barbed wire around the home in Soweto. And I was sitting there with Walter Sisulu, Winnie Mandela, and Desmond Tutu. And I was young. And I kept pressing him, tell me the toughest thing about being in Poorsmore Prison. I kept pressing him, and he didn't want to. And he was a very awesome, very humble man. And he kept shaking his head. And then finally, he said, young man, I'll tell you. He said, in South Africa, it's very hot. And they had a very interesting way of punishing people. And to me, it was very vile, very depressing. And all of a sudden, I saw this old man, and tears were streaming down his face. And I felt so bad. But he had no intentions of stopping the story. And he said what he remembers, the harshest and cruelest punishment of all, which he said never happened to him. But when it happened to his fellow prison guards, it happened to him also. He said they would take you out on the hottest day, and you'd have to dig like a grave in the hot burning sand. And you'd have to go out there naked, the prisoners. And they would cover you up in this hot burning sand. And then the prison guards would go out. The only thing that would not be bared would be your face. And then the prison guards would go out and urinate in their faces. I didn't even know human beings had that kind of capacity back then. But life is really cruel. And you know, Voltaire once said, if it's been done by mankind, I'm capable of doing it. What helps those of us navigate not killing, raping, stealing, and harm others? It's our moral compass. It's that conscience that we have within that keeps us from making that step. And you have to feed that conscience. You have to feed that morality through doing good and by reading the right kinds of philosophy to reinforce the good that is in the human being. Because what the media does today, it reinforces the worst of society. If it bleeds, it leads. We don't hear good stories anymore. You think all the world is corrupt, all the world are racist, all the world are murderers, all the world are anti-black, but there are a lot of good people in the world. I meet them every day. Good people, decent people. No one is ever good because of their race and because of their gender. Never. They're never good because of their ethnicity. They're never good because of the home they grew up in. They're never good because of the job that they do. They're never good because of their law enforcement. They're good because they have a moral conscience that eats at them, guides them. That's what it is. You have to feed that. You feed that by finding people with like-minded values, like-minded goals. And yet, you must take time for those that have gone astray. You must shine your light so they can find their light. And law students are a light for the future. Just when they had just announced that the Biden administration were canceling student loan debt. The problem with that is the president doesn't have the authority to cancel student loan debt. That is the authority of Congress. That is a separation of powers issue. And so the media whips you into a frenzy, making you believe that Biden can unilaterally, he can't make that decision. Law students must, and lawyers must restore the truth and integrity to the law and not politicize it for political or financial gain. The country is already divided. You know, God gives us free will. Abortion should have long been back to the state. I would never in my conscience tell a woman that she has to have a baby because she was raped or incest. I don't have that kind of power. We all have free will. God's going to judge us all. That's why he gives us free will. The freedom to receive, accept him or reject him. Yes. There are some things you cannot politicize. You just can't. It's just common sense to me. There are some things I don't want to make a decision for somebody else. You know, the hardest work I do, 24 hours a day, is working on Armstrong Williams. That's the toughest assignment I have every day, is working on my character, working on my choices. You know what happens at the end of that 24 hours? I find absolutely that the world around me is better. We spend so much time working on other people, criticizing other people, that we never take the time to work on ourselves, which is the hardest work for any of us. Everything is not political. Everything is not left or right. There is a spiritual illness in this country that nobody wants to talk about. Every issue, every problem in the world is always back to policy or who's in the White House. No, spiritual illness. We must get back to our faith. We must get back to our Creator. We must get back to reawakening virtues and values and honor and find the best in each other, else there will be no future for you and your kids in this country. Things seem so dismal. You must be that light in the dark. Character, virtues, morality. You're not here to serve anybody's agenda, left or right. You are here as protectors of the Constitution. That is your duty. That is your assignment. That is your obligation. And no matter what side it comes down on, you are the protectors. You are those that carry the flame for the future. I'm not here to talk about left or right. That's irrelevant. I'm here to talk about your character and how will America find itself under your leadership when you are the lawyers, when you are the leaders in America. Can we change the trajectory of destruction that we find ourselves on this path? And you can if you choose to. Reading is important. I still read 1 or 2 books every week. I've read every classic I must read. I must feed myself. I feed myself through reading, through philosophy. I read. It's important that I feed myself when I write, when I research. So for me, as a broadcast owner, as a writer, I am a referee. I must be neutral. You must have platforms and media that people trust, where it doesn't seem as though you're advocating for one side or the other. Can you imagine if your favorite team are the Dolphins, are the Cowboys, are the Jets, are the Giants, and the referee is biased because he has a favorite in the game, you know how long that lasts and how long your trust will last? We must have neutral arbiters in the law. Colorblind. Yes, someone's preference, that's their choice. That's their freedom. Exercise it. And whatever choices we make, be prepared for the rewards and the consequences. Because, in my teaching and understanding, God forgives you for your sin, but you're still going to pay the price for it. Okay? Your slate's not going to be wiped clean. You're going to still be in the valley for a while, okay? And let me tell you, I don't like making dumb choices. I just don't like it. I don't want to work so hard to build my success, to lose it over sex and drugs and anger on a highway where I'm just driving and I get angry at someone and I ram them and somebody dies. And I end up in just stupidity. You've got to be able to step back and restrain yourself and think about the consequences when you're making those decisions. Good people sometimes can do dumb things and end up in jail because you cannot control, you cannot restrain. It is important that you think twice. Why am I going to have an argument with you when I can find an area of common ground? People want to give in the conflict. All these videos of people killing, shooting each other, and it thrills us. It's sad. But that's not who we are. That's not who we are. Because we are better, we will do better. And I have no doubt that in this room is not only the future of America, of the world. And I'm honored to be here because I always want to be in a place where good minds are thinking and creating and how to make the world a better place for all of us. So no matter what you do in life, whether you're a physician, whether you're a lawyer, entrepreneur, no matter what it is, morality is always at the center of it all. So I've seen the daylight breaking through the bow. I found my destination, and I made my vow. Whether people deride me or ignore me, mighty mountains loom before me, and I cannot stop. I don't follow the crowd, but I follow what is righteous. I'm not one easily manipulated because I've seen the truth too many times from reading and in real life. It is upon your shoulders that the law must regain its integrity. It must regain its honor, and you must become the true protectors of the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to your future in America and the world. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do for us now is to facilitate a question and answer with Mr. Williams. As you guys, I told you you were in for a real treat. I know we have a lot of students that are actively engaged, and so I will take questions and pass them along to Mr. Williams. So somebody out there, questions, comments.
And you don't have to ask questions. That's okay, too.
Make
What's
a
me?
statement.
Yeah. But you can ask them. Yes, ma'am. Do you have a mic? They can give you the mic.
Hi, how are you doing this morning? Well, this afternoon.
Actually, I feel good.
That's great.
Yes, I do.
So my
I'm in a
question's
good
little
place.
bit more
Yes,
of like
I
a
am.
personal one. I just kind of want to know, how'd you get involved in the media during the time when you came up through college, being that I know for Black men, it was pretty hard to not only own your own business, but just get your foot in the door to even be the successful man that you are today, especially coming from the South. So I would just like to know, like, how'd you get involved in the media and how'd you climb that ladder of success?
What's your name?
Sydney Nettles.
sitting there. I'm going to tell you something very interesting. I know you guys are going to think it's crazy when I tell you this, but it's the truth. I got to tell you. I have never experienced racism in my life. Never been impacted by it. Grew up in the South, never had any impact on my life. It's one of the reasons I never talk about it. I write about it, we broadcast about it, no impact on me. And it is racist to assume just because you look like I do that you've experienced racism, as well as because somebody who may not look like me, that they've never experienced it. So I have not. But listen, I'm just be candid, okay? So we produce programming all around the world. Well, Justice Thomas, I was his speechwriter for 4 years. During his days at EEOC, I have a very interesting history. And so, and he's my guy. He is really my guy. He's my mentor. And I was involved in hotels and real estate and car dealerships. And he called to tell me that Bush had nominated him, was going to nominate him to the Supreme Court, and that he wanted me to handle all the public relations for it, right? Oh, it was brutal. It was so bitter. It was so bad. But anyhow, I never forget something he said to me. He said, buddy, and this is his quote, he said, they will never leave me alone. They will always try to change the narrative about who I am. And the only way you can have any impact on the narrative is that you've got to get into the media. He said, and you seem to be pretty good at this thing you call business. He said, you should really find a way to get into the media, but not just being in the media, but owning the media. And so he was my inspiration for getting in the media because it had purpose. You know, to do things, you can't do things just to make money. I do things that gives real value to my life and the value to others. So I actually got, and then I was motivated. And so I wrote columns for USA Today for 5 years. And I wrote columns for Essence Magazine. And then we started producing TV shows. And you know, the thing you've got to do is just, it's crazy. You just got to be creative. It's amazing the mind, if you really believe. See, a lot of people lack self-worth, lack self-esteem. They really don't believe they are the difference. They don't really believe that they can hang up a shingle and make a difference. But for me, I started out in multi-level marketing, thing you call pyramiding. I didn't really care about the multi-level marketing. I read the manual. I was in my 20s. I read the manual. It was Dick Gregory's Bahamian Diet out of Baltimore. I read the manual, and I understand math pretty well. I said, oh, there are a lot of loopholes here. I can make a lot of money before they close these loopholes. And sure enough, I started selling this diet. Never tried it, by the way. Never. It's a fact. Never had any interest in that strict business. But anyhow, my first check was $211. My second check was $1,600. But my third check was $16,000. And then my father became ill and was devastated and eventually died. But by the time, from that multi-level marketing, by the time I was 24 years old, I banked $1.3 million in the bank. And I'll tell you something else that's important, too, since you asked about the business. My father always taught me to squirrel away, that no matter what you do, you always take 10% of it and put it aside. And don't tell nobody you're squirreling away. Because when somebody knows that you've got money in your pocket, it burns in theirs. And they want to find a way to spend it. It's just a fact. People don't like you having money, especially when you're young. You cannot tell people you have money in your pocket. So, since I was 18 years old, no matter whether it was $50, I always squirreled 10% away. And I did that, and at age 31, when I looked in that bank account, because I never touched it, it was like $3.6 million. So I never had to make decisions based on finances. I never had to make a decision because I needed a job. I always could take care of myself, even if the business did not work out. And for me, I didn't grow up poor. I have no idea what that is. I know most people want to assume that these rags, the richest stories, we always had, always. And my parents, I thank God for it. I know people like those stories. They sell well in America. That's the American story. But you can have that story. My story still works very well. I have parents who are very accomplished and very well off, yes. And like many families in this country. Yes, many families. And so I really had, and I grew up in an entrepreneur family where my family would run businesses, and my family had us really involved. So I had that entrepreneur spirit. So for me, and the other thing is, since in my 20s, I've never had a business to fail. That's why I say I don't understand it. But I've never had a business to fail, and I am not going to make an emotional decision about business. If you violate my trust once and you show me your character, when someone reveals themselves to you, believe them. That's who they are, okay? And sometimes we get emotional. We think people are going to change. We don't think, we see them ripping off other people, then they're going to rip us off. It's just a matter of hours. Not days, but hours. And it's probably happening right then and there. So character matters, okay? So I was very fortunate that never in my life, I've never, ever, ever in my life had to worry about money or the next dollar or paying my bills. And I've been very fortunate that way. And you know what it's like, the force multiplier effect. When you save it and put money away, what happens with that force multiplier effect? I've been really blessed. That's why I'm just so thankful to the Lord, because just little things, that you can get little premonitions about people, little things in your instinct that you ignore, even in relationships. Something tells you a guy hit you the first time, you think you think you can work it out. No, there's some things you cannot work out when you're dealing with grown people, okay? They reveal themselves to you. If somebody violates your trust, that's a sign. You got to see people who they are for who they are, not who you want them to be for you. That's the toughest thing. Sorry to have gone so long, but I thought I could answer a lot of the stuff in there, okay? Okay, next.
Another question.
Yes, brother. Yes, right here.
Good afternoon. I wanted to ask, and I'm sure from you as a person, I can see very blatantly from listening to you that this wouldn't apply to you as a person, but as a business owner, and specifically a business owner in media, how do you reconcile the innate, drive towards being inflammatory and being edgy for the purposes of drawing in engagement, drawing in people to listen to you or listen to your platforms, not you specifically, but all the different brands you own or different platforms you own, and then sticking with it, because obviously being inflammatory, as we've seen with this situation with social media and this current paradigm we have, being inflammatory is what people, at least to me, it seems that there's a subsect of people that want and thrive in that environment of being inflammatory, and people don't want that more level-headed middle ground anymore. So seeing as, at least in my observation, being inflammatory is the profit-driven incentive, how do you reconcile being the middle ground, middleman, for the purposes of being more balanced and good for everybody all around?
Well, that's an interesting question, because, the news, the serious news can be very depressing for people, and they need an escape. And sometimes we think going to our video games, entertainment, or going to the movies, entertainment. But people see it as escape. I do think, particularly in this room, I think it's dangerous for children, but for like adults here, I think they have the maturity and the common sense to navigate it for exactly what it is. That's the society that we live in. Now, I will tell you, on our broadcasts, on our networks, we don't feed that. There are just many stories we will just not cover. But in our social media, there's stories about hijacking and other stories that are definitely sensational that we certainly will post. And so, we have a huge team. We have a huge social media staff. And so I used to agonize over whether posting these stories were for the greater good, but we post them. And I don't think it's necessarily that we're posting them because we want to get clicks. The stories we post, we do a lot of vetting. They're absolutely true. This is what goes on. It's what happens. I mean, it's the truth. And so I just think there should be a balance. While you put these stories out there, you certainly should be responsible in balancing it out with other stories, which is what we do. And you have 24 hours of content to fill. And different time slots brings in different things that you can sort of populate throughout the day. I just don't believe in censorship. I just don't on any level. I don't believe in restricted speech. Of course, you cannot throw a fire in a movie theater, and you cannot harm people. Yes, certainly, there's an audience out there for it, and we want to capture that audience because we can use that content to bring them in to other content that we have that will eventually, where that content would be less engaging to them, and they will be more engaged with the more meaningful content that we have. That's it? Okay. Your name? Okay, here's the mic. Professor Rosa, okay.
First, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank
It was absolutely great listening to you, and I think I'd like all the students that are at St. Thomas University to be able to listen to you. I hope we have taped it. And I want to thank the Black Law Student Association for having you here and the Benjamin Crump Center. Having said that, you mentioned family as an important element, and particularly talking about your own family. I could see everything you're saying, where the basis is. Loved that. And I could see a successful project like you. Then, short story. I am in my office and I get a student that in my eyes is probably amongst the very best people I have ever met. Let me call her Princess B. She has class and grace and wisdom. She gets a phone call while she's talking with me and she goes, I have to pick up this call because it's coming from prison. And I say, oh, sure, please. And then she tells me that her story, pretty much everyone in her family has been in and out of prison. She grew up with the grandmother, and she goes, I'm trying to break this cycle. And again, if I had a daughter, I want my daughter to be like her. That's what I appreciate. So, through her free will, she's doing this enormous work, and she's going to be one of those extraordinary young people that St. Thomas educates out there. But how about others that are not able to do that? Those that do not have a family like yours and like mine. So many others that have families like my Princess B's family and are alone. What are the systems? We know that, unfortunately, family today is struggling throughout in every society, not only in the United States. What other systems do you think would be filling in, helping out for all the rest of children that do not necessarily have the support and the wisdom of families like yours and like mine and many others here? And I mean families of all colors, because this is not specific to one specific race, the issue. I don't know whether it makes sense, but.
Oh, no, it does make sense, and thank you. You know, I don't know if institutions are always the answer. Government. I'm also talking about charities, churches. You know, listen, there's always someone. I believe life is like synchronicity. When the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. I've always found that even when I did not have the guiding tools in my life, there's always someone that's there that can have an impact on your values, on your path. And this is why, for me, I always find it's no matter who I may see, I have a conversation with them. You know, I often walk to Union Station, and I have some of the most interesting and fascinating conversations with homeless people. You would think that sometimes they have absolutely nothing to offer, but I've found over the years they're some of the most well-educated, most informed, and their stories are just remarkable in how they got to the places that they're in. And every story, every life has a story. And so for someone like the person that you'd want to be like your daughter, I don't pity them, because there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of common sense that they learn. Because see, what you've said to me and is that she doesn't want to go the way that her family. Doesn't mean she loves them any less, but she doesn't want to become that, because she's thinking of having her own family one day. And we've seen all kind of stories where people have broke the cycle. They just don't follow into the culture of drugs, the culture of prison, like their family members. And sometimes you just got to have the self-discipline, you got to have the self-will, and you got to find the people, the mentors, and not necessarily people who are mentors, but everyday people who are your friends, who can sort of give you the strength to get through those situations. Because what happens when the church is not there? What happens when the government is not there? What happens when you're all alone? You're going to have real people, real characters there with you to sort of help you along through your journey. I think we place so much emphasis on celebrities and on government, and we forget about the everyday people right here in this room. You know, you have to cast down your buckets where you order. Fresh water is right where you stand. What you got to do is have an access, because you may date, you may go and see your professor, but you have no idea how many other things that professor is connected to or what that friend is connected to until you have a conversation. The problem in society today, we don't go deep enough in our conversations. We just don't go deep enough to explore. And I always find out, for me, whatever I'm looking for, it has always been there all the time. I just needed to have a different kind of conversation. So I don't pity for her. I think if she continues, the fact that she's having this conversation with you about the agony, it tells me that the journey has already begun, and she will soon find the strength to triumph the situation, to make her family and the generations forward better.
Any other last-minute questions? We are coming close to an end. Ms. Prince, president of our Black Law Student Association. Yes, sir. Who we did this in partnership with, has the last question of the day.
It's not necessarily a question. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the Black Law students, our members, and the whole student body. We just want to thank you for answering the call that Dean Clark gave to you, and President Armstrong for answering and saying yes. Because without your yes, we wouldn't have been blessed the way that we have been today. So we just want to thank you, and we really have been blessed, and you have bestowed a wealth of knowledge to us tonight. And honestly, I don't know about everyone else tonight, but I'm going to be thinking about this tonight when I go home and figuring out how can I work on Nisha Prince specifically. So I want to thank you, and I hope everyone else had a wonderful time today as well.
You know, I want to say this to you. Your network is your net worth. The best resources that you have are each other, human beings. It's just a gift. Get to know good people, and if they're not good, make them better. I'm telling you, my remarkable journey is the fact that I just know a lot of good people. I've had a lot of good mentors, and no matter what the media tells you, there's still a lot of good left in the world. Don't ever give up on good. And if you seek good, you'll find it. All right, it will eventually find you. Thank you very much. Oh, wow, exactly 1 o'clock. That's good. That's pretty good, 1 o'clock.
Thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate your support. I will see you in class on what, Tuesday or something. Thank you guys.
Thank you. I guess we'll do a picture.
Brandon, come on over here. Come on in this picture.
Okay.
We're going to get Brandon in here. Come on, Brandon.
Come on, Brandon.
Oh, he wants to be in.
I'll get on.
Okay, all right.
Let him play that role. Okay.
Tighter, tighter.
Randy, mind if I stand next to you?
All right.
That's pretty good because the president
Get in there,
didn't finish
come
his
on.
remarks till 12:18. So we're out of here by 1. Everybody look this way.
Smile. 3, 2, 1. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Big smiles. There we go. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you all. Thank you, brother. Oh, I did not use one word for my speech. That's the best speeches. I did not use one word for this, and he told me I wanted. It was crazy. He said, I said, no, I'm going to use every word today. I did not use one. I didn't know, but it's scary. I feel like it went out as soon as the first thing started off. Yeah, like it happened. Actually, not one word.
I did see him glass down.
I did. No. You know what was awkward when I saw him looking down? It's kind of awkward. And so I could, that impacted me. Nothing about you, brother, but I just, that's all right. No, I'm not good. Because you got to keep looking for the places you are. Yes, I don't like looking down. I keep looking
It's a
up.
great skill set.
Yeah.
Brandon, you're in it too. Come on. All right, Armstrong, want to get a picture?